The heavy gilded gates of Buckingham Palace are more than just a ceremonial entrance. They are the ultimate physical threshold of British absolute power. For Queen Camilla, discovering that those gates had been permanently closed to her as a resident was not announced with a dramatic confrontation, but with a quiet, devastating logistical update. Her personal effects, discreetly staged for the eventual move into the newly renovated sovereign's apartments, were suddenly intercepted and indefinitely held in storage. She was quietly informed that she would be using the side entrances for all future administrative duties. This is the story of how the ultimate prize of the monarchy was silently snatched from her grasp. In less than 48 hours, what was sold to the British public as a modernising renovation became the most ruthless, calculated institutional eviction in modern royal history. What looked like a routine administrative update regarding royal residences was actually a total dismantling of her final ambition. Today, we are unpacking the reality behind the sudden announcement that King Charles and Queen Camilla will never move into Buckingham Palace. We will expose the secret power grab she attempted under the guise of interior renovations, how Prince William and Princess Anne uncovered the logistical paper tail, and the silent, ruthless retaliation that followed. By the end of this video, you will understand how the highest echelons of the royal family weaponized a taxpayer-funded project to remind Camilla of one devastating truth: she may wear the crown, but she will never possess the castle. To comprehend the sheer psychological devastation of this denied access, we must first rebuild the illusion of absolute power she had cultivated over the last 30 years. For 3 decades, Camilla's entire existence has been a calculated climb toward ultimate legitimacy. She endured the public venom of the 90s, the inescapable, enduring ghost of Princess Diana and the initial freezing out by Queen Elizabeth's old court, but slowly, meticulously, she reauthored her reality. She moved from the shadows of Charles's life into the light of Clarence House, and finally to the throne itself. But in the psychology of the monarchy, titles are just words. Real power is geographic. Buckingham Palace is the seat of the sovereign. It is where the balcony stands. It is where Diana once walked as the undisputed future queen. For Camilla, Clarence House was always just a waiting room. Moving into the central sovereign apartments at Buckingham Palace was meant to be her final victory, the ultimate institutional validation that she had completely conquered the system. In her mind, the crown on her head meant the keys to the kingdom were automatically hers. She began operating with the profound confidence of a woman who believed she had completely outmaneuvered the monarchy. She assumed that King Charles's absolute devotion gave her an unassailable mandate to reshape the physical footprint of the institution. Her non-royal children, Tom and Laura, were no longer kept at a polite distance. They were being subtly positioned within the periphery of royal prestige. Behind the scenes, the preparations for the move to Buckingham Palace were treated as an absolute certainty. The trigger for her downfall was a secret, overreaching power grab hidden within the chaos of a £369 million renovation project. As Buckingham Palace underwent its massive decade-long structural overhaul, an administrative vacuum opened up. King Charles focused on his health and the broader survival of the monarchy, delegated many of the logistical decisions. Camilla saw this as the perfect window, a series of discrete adjustments to the floor plan's interior design approvals, and future room allocations began moving through the bureaucratic pipeline. It was a calculated attempt to carve out a permanent, independent footprint for her own private court right in the beating heart of the monarchy. She was quietly designating grace and favour quarters for her loyalists and allegedly preparing spaces that would seamlessly integrate her own grandchildren into the palace's daily rhythm. It was a play for deep physical entrenchment hidden beneath the dense fog of construction blueprints and routine administrative updates. What Camilla did not account for was the absolute unsentimental vigilance of the bloodline. Prince William and Princess Anne do not operate on emotion, they operate on the preservation of the crown. William carries the silent, enduring grief for his mother, possessing a fierce determination that Diana's physical and historical legacy will not be paved over. Princess Anne, fiercely protective of the crown's assets and famously intolerant of commercial desperation, serves as the ultimate administrative enforcer. Together, they share an unyielding commitment to protecting the institution from internal exploitation. The alarm was raised not by a leaked tabloid story, but by a routine logistical audit of the master of the household's renovation budget. Anne and William uncovered the paper trail. They saw the creeping expansion of Camilla's footprint in the revised blueprints. They recognized exactly what she was trying to do: establish a parallel court inside the sovereign's headquarters that would outlast Charles's reign. But they did not scream. They did not confront her in a dramatic showdown in the drawing rooms of Clarence House. They simply did what the royal family does best: they let the bureaucracy do the killing. They weaponized the very renovation project she was trying to exploit. The retaliation was a masterclass in silent, institutional warfare. William and Anne worked through the Sovereign Grant Committee and the royal trustees to completely alter the destiny of the building. The narrative they engineered was flawless, unarguable, and brilliant. They announced that Buckingham Palace must be modernized for the people, that the era of monarchs hoarding vast palaces was over, and that the building would be open to the public year-round to justify its taxpayer funding. On the surface, it was a magnificent public relations victory for a modernizing monarchy. Behind closed doors, it was a targeted, lethal strike against Camilla's final ambition. By declaring that the palace would primarily become a working headquarters and a public exhibition space, they permanently eliminated the residential sovereign apartments. They stripped the building of its domestic function. The trap snapped shut with devastating elegance. When Camilla received the finalized logistical memo detailing the future use of the palace, the reality of her situation crystallized. The memo did not attack her. It simply stated that due to the new public access protocols, there would be no permanent royal residence at Buckingham Palace. She and the king would remain at Clarence House indefinitely. In that moment, standing with a logistical update in her hand, the illusion of her absolute power shattered. She realized she had been entirely outmaneuvered. Her personal belongings would never cross the threshold of the sovereign's private quarters. Her family would never have a permanent suite in the center of the royal universe. She had been permanently relegated to the status of a tenant at Clarence House, forced to use the side doors of Buckingham Palace for official meetings. Forever. A guest in the house she thought she had finally conquered. The crushing reality of that logistical memo was only the beginning of a much deeper psychological fracture. When Queen Camilla realized that her permanent move to Buckingham Palace had been administratively blocked, her immediate instinct was to do what she had always done: bypass the system and go straight to the king. For 30 years, a private word in Charles's ear was the ultimate trump card against any institutional resistance. She brought the revised blueprints and the new public access protocols to the monarch, fully expecting him to overrule his son and his sister. But that is where the story shifts. King Charles, weary from his ongoing health battles and acutely aware of the fragile public perception of the monarchy, did not intervene. He looked at the flawless public relations strategy crafted by William and Anne, and he met Camilla's outrage with a devastating silence. He chose the survival of the institution over the comfort of his wife. For Camilla, this was a profound, quiet betrayal. It was the exact moment she understood that his devotion could crown her, but it could not make her a structural stakeholder in the firm. To understand why this eviction hit with such catastrophic force, we must look at the brutal economic reality of her position. This is the staggering contrast of royal life, the ultimate schadenfreude that the public rarely sees. Camilla's aggressive push to secure space within Buckingham Palace was born out of a quiet, commercial desperation. She does not hold the deeds to the royal estates. She does not control the Duchy of Cornwall, the billion-dollar engine of royal wealth that is now exclusively managed by Prince William. Clarence House, where she now resides indefinitely, is a crown property, meaning she is essentially a tenant of the state. By barring her from establishing a permanent generational footprint inside Buckingham Palace, William and Anne effectively cut off her institutional oxygen. They reminded her that her entire physical and financial existence relies entirely on the grace of the reigning monarch, and more importantly, on the tolerance of the next one. As Camilla's physical influence was quietly boxed in a different power centre, began to radiate with absolute clarity, the Princess of Wales, who has endured years of subtle slights with uncomplaining sacrifice, is now the undeniable future of the institution. We saw this shift not in a loud announcement, but in a carefully orchestrated detail that was perfectly understood by those inside the palace walls. With Buckingham Palace now transitioning into a year-round public exhibition space, the first major installations approved by the royal trustees heavily featured the historical legacy of Princess Diana. Dresses and portraits that had been locked in archives were suddenly brought out and displayed in the very staterooms Camilla had allegedly earmarked for her own private entertaining. That detail matters. It was not a random curatorial choice. It was a forensic visual reclamation of history by Prince William. It was a silent, unyielding statement that the era of institutional erasure is over, and that his mother's legacy will occupy the very halls Camilla was denied. The psychological warfare of the royal family is never fought with shouting matches in the press. It is fought with architectural floor plans, revoked residential access, and archival portraits. It is fought by making someone administratively invisible in the very building they thought they commanded. Today, Camilla finds herself trapped in a gilded paradox. She achieved the title she spent a lifetime chasing, only to discover that the absolute power she thought came with it is an illusion. The renovation project she hoped would secure her family's permanent status became the very weapon used to evict her. Prince William and Princess Anne have drawn a line in the marble floors of the monarchy. They have executed a flawless, silent retaliation, ensuring that the geographic heart of the crown will never be conquered by the person who spent 30 years trying to rewrite its history. The reign of King Charles may continue for now, but the era of Queen Camilla's unchecked physical expansion has been quietly, ruthlessly terminated. If you found this breakdown of royal power dynamics insightful, make sure to subscribe and leave your thoughts below on how Prince William is fiercely protecting the future of the monarchy.